Hi boys and girls, this is Mrs. Lemons and I'm going to read to you the book called Teammates. It's a true story about Jackie Robinson and his friend Pee Wee Reese that also played on the same team as him. It is by Peter Goldenbach and illustrated by Paul Bacon. On the first page here, if you look, it shows Ebbets Field, and that was in the story Luke at Bat that we just read. Here is a quote from Pee Wee Reese, his friend, about Jackie. It says, "Jackie Robinson was more than just my teammate. He had a tremendous amount of talent, ability, and dedication. Jackie set a standard for future generations of ball players. He was a winner. Jackie Robinson was also a man." By Pee Wee Reese, October 31st, 1989. Here's the story. Once upon a time in America, when automobiles were black and looked like tanks and laundry was white and hung on clotheslines to dry, there were two wonderful baseball leagues that no longer exist. They were called the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leagues had extraordinary players, and adoring fans came to see them wherever they played. They were heroes, but players in the Negro Leagues didn't make much money, and their lives on the road were hard. Now, when it talks about the Negro Leagues, it's talking about the African American League. And there's a player, his name was Satchel Paige. Laws against segregation didn't exist in the 1940s. In many places in this country, black people were not allowed to go to the same schools and churches as white people. They couldn't sit in front of a bus or trolley car. They couldn't drink from the same drinking fountains that white people drank from, which we talked about in school too. And there it shows the drinking fountain. It says white only. Back then, many hotels didn't rent rooms to black people, so the Negro League players slept in their cars. Many towns had no restaurants that would serve them, so they often had to eat meals that they could buy and carry with them. So when they went to play different baseball games, if they had to stay over, they couldn't stay in the motels, they couldn't eat in some of the restaurants. Life was very different for the players in the major leagues. They were the leagues for white players. Compared to the Negro League players, white players were very well paid. They stayed in good hotels and ate in fine restaurants. Their pictures were put on baseball cards, and the best players became famous all over the world. So in the white league, the major leagues, they got treated much better, paid much better. They had baseball cards made on them. These are some of the players: Joe DiMaggio, Ty Cobb, Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, and Ted Williams. Many Americans knew that racial prejudice was wrong, but few dared to challenge openly the way things were, and many people were apathetic about racial problems. Some feared that it could be dangerous to object. Vigilant groups like the Ku Klux Klan reacted violently against those who tried to change the way blacks were treated. Again, we talked about how unfair that was. Here's a picture of Branch Rickey. And we're going to find out who he is on the next page here. The general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers baseball team was a man by the name of Branch Rickey. He was not afraid of change. He wanted to treat the Dodger fans to the best players he could find, regardless of the color of their skin. He thought segregation was unfair and wanted to give everyone, regardless of race or creed, an opportunity to compete equally on ball fields across America. To do this, the Dodgers needed one special man. And who do you think that special man is going to be? Jackie Robinson. Branch Rickey launched a search for him. He was looking for a star player in the Negro Leagues who would be able to compete successfully despite threats on his life or attempts to injure him. He would have to possess the self-control not to fight back when opposing players tried to intimidate or hurt him. If this man disgraced himself on the field, Rickey knew his opponents would use it as an excuse to keep blacks out of the Major League Baseball for more years. Rickey thought Jackie Robinson might be just the man. There's a real picture of him. Here's drawn pictures of him. So whoever it's going to be is going to have to be really tough that he chooses. Here's a picture of Jackie Robinson and Branch Rickey. Jackie rode the train to Brooklyn to meet Mr. Rickey. When Rickey told him, "I want a man with the courage not to fight back," Jackie Robinson replied, "If you take this gamble, I will do my best to perform." They shook hands. Branch Rickey and Jackie Robinson were starting on what would be known in history as the Great Experiment. And there's his jersey, number 42. At spring training with the Dodgers, Jackie was mobbed by blacks, young and old, as if he were a savior. He was the first black player to try out for a major league team. If he succeeded, they knew others would follow. So the little black kids and adults thought it was so awesome because he was the first African American to be able to play in the major leagues. They thought he was awesome, and he was. Initially, life with the Dodgers was for Jackie a series of humiliations. The players on his team, who came from the South, men who had been taught to avoid black people since childhood, moved to another table whenever he sat down next to them. Many opposing players were cruel to him, calling him nasty names from their dugouts. A few tried to hurt him with their spiked shoes. Pitchers aimed at his head, and he received threats on his life, both from individuals and from organizations like the Ku Klux Klan. So here they are sitting at the dugouts, and they won't even sit by him just because of the color of his skin. So sad. Despite all the difficulties, Jackie Robinson didn't give up. He made the Brooklyn Dodgers team. There's an actual photo. Can you see which one he is? There he is. And think about how lonely that probably felt at times too, to be different. But making the Dodgers was only the beginning. Jackie had to face abuse and hostility throughout the season, from April through September. His worst pain was inside. Often he felt very alone. On the road, he had to live by himself because only the white players were allowed in the hotels and towns where the team played. So think about it. They go to a different town to stay. The rest of his team gets to go and stay in the hotel, and he can't stay in it because he's black. Pretty unbelievable. The whole time Pee Wee Reese was the Dodger shortstop was growing up in Louisville, Kentucky. He'd rarely even seen a black person unless it was in the back of a bus. Most of his friends and relatives hated the idea of his playing on the same field as a black man. In addition, Pee Wee Reese had more to lose than the other players when Jackie joined the team. Jackie had been a shortstop, and everyone thought that Jackie would take Pee Wee's job. Lesser men might have felt anger toward Jackie, but Pee Wee was different. He told himself, if he's good enough to take my job, he deserves it. When his Southern teammates circulated a petition to throw Jackie off the team and asked him to sign it, Pee Wee responded, "I don't care if this man is black, blue, or striped," and refused to sign it. "He can play and he can help us win," he told the others. "That's what counts." So remember in social studies, we talked about signing a petition to get something changed. Well, the teammates were signing to try to get him off the team. And Pee Wee said, "I'm not going to sign it. I don't care what color his skin is. I care who he is and how he can play." There's Crosley Field. It's a picture, an old-time picture of the field. Very early in the season, the Dodgers traveled west to Ohio to play the Cincinnati Reds. Cincinnati is near Pee Wee's hometown of Louisville. So, another reason I like this story is because it kind of takes place close to where we live. So there's Ohio and Cincinnati, and you can see Louisville. But like I said, maybe even some of you have been to a Cincinnati Reds game before. The Reds played in a small ballpark where the fans sat close to the field. The players could almost feel the breath of the fans on the backs of their necks. Many who came that day screamed terrible, hateful things at Jackie when the Dodgers were on the field. More than anything else, Pee Wee Reese believed in doing what was right. When he heard the fans yelling at Jackie, Pee Wee decided to take a stand. So there they are at the ballpark, and even the fans are yelling terrible things. With his head high, Pee-wee walked directly from his shortstop position to where Jackie was playing first base. The taunts and shouting of the fans were ringing in Pee-wee's ears. It saddened him because he knew it could have been his friends and neighbors. Pee-wee's legs felt heavy, but he knew what he had to do. As he walked toward Jackie wearing the gray Dodger uniform, he looked into his teammates' bold, pained eyes. The first baseman had done nothing to provoke the hostility except that he sought to be treated as an equal. Jackie was grim with anger. Pee-wee smiled broadly as he reached Jackie. Jackie smiled back. So here's Pee-wee going over to talk to Jackie at first base. Stopping beside Jackie, Pee-wee put his arm around Jackie's shoulders. An audible gasp rose from the crowd when they saw what Pee-wee had done. Then there was silence. Outlined on a sea of green grass stood these two great athletes, one black, one white, both wearing the same team uniform. "I'm standing by him," Pee-wee Reese said to the world. "This man is my teammate." And so he stood up for him. Here are two actual pictures of them, Jackie Robinson and Pee-wee Reese. I really like this book because it shouldn't ever matter the color of our skin, of how we treat people. I hope you always treat people kind because of their heart. And I hope that you have learned a little bit about Jackie Robinson and Pee-wee Reese. If you'd like to do a little more research, I'm sure that you can get on the internet and find some more cool things about them. But just like Jackie, never give up. Take care.